consideration of the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill for fiscal year 2027. I will now recognize Chairman Amodei to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In view of the time, I am going to reserve my time and defer to the other folks who want to make opening statements.
The guy's clearly running for chairman. I would now like to recognize my good friend and ranking member Cuellar for remarks on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ranking Member DeLaura. Thank you both for your leadership. And thank you to Chairman Amodei to the partnership that we have shared in developing this bill. As this is your final Homeland Security bill, I want to express my appreciation for your professionalism, your integrity that you have brought to this committee. As I mentioned at our subcommittee markup last week, the process of working with you and your team in drafting this important bill has been a good one, consistent with the tradition of the subcommittee. I also want to thank the staff on both sides of the aisle whose expertise and dedication make this process possible. I'd like to specifically thank our committee staff. On the minority side, our clerk, Shannon McCulley, thank you again. J.B. Weiss, Jim Ellsworth. On the majority side, Paul Anstein, you look pretty rested, Paul. Anna Lanier Fisher, Fern Gibbons, Ashley Trueluck, Alexandra Ramirez, and Inko C. Thomas. And on the professional staff, on my personal staff, my chief, Patrick O'Connor and Hugh Bayard. Before we start discussing funding levels and amendments or policy priorities, I think it's important that we remember why this committee exists in the first place. The framers understood that control over government spending was not merely a budgetary function, it was a constitutional safeguard. Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution is clear. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in the consequence of appropriations made by law. The Constitution places that responsibility in Congress because accountability to the American people requires public debate, public oversight, and public transparency. James Madison understood this well. In Federalist Paper number 58, he described the power of the purse as, quote, the most complete and effectual weapon in which any constitution can arm the immediate representatives of the people. That principle remains just as important today as it was nearly 250 years ago. The Department of Homeland is one of the most important agencies in the federal government. Whether Americans live on the border, travel through an airport, rely on disaster assistance after a hurricane, or work in industries that depend on secure trade and commerce, DHS touches the lives every day. Its mission is essential, but this bill is different. This is the only bill that did not completely finish in FY 2026. It is the only bill that has seen an unprecedented amount of funding directed to the department from committees outside this room. What we're doing today and tomorrow, having an open and public debate about federal funding, is part of the process that keeps us accountable to the American taxpayer. However, as we know, the Senate last week passed a partisan bill, and the House passed their bill this afternoon that provides $70 billion more for the department. Combined with more than $191 billion the department received last year, that brings DHS funding to roughly $260 billion outside the regular review of this committee, the committee that is in charge of funding the Department of Homeland Security. That should be a concern to every appropriator, not because Congress is entitled to this authority, but because the American people are entitled to accountability. This committee's role is grounded on Article 1 of this Constitution, and we should never take that responsibility lightly. For example, with all the additional funding, how much was set aside for the Inspector General to ensure that this massive amount of taxpayers' dollars is not wasted, misused, or lost in contracts that were not properly competed? The answer is zero, none. The power of the purse and the duty of oversight are inseparable. Oversight is one of the Congress' core responsibility, constitutional responsibility. At a time when federal funding is increasing dramatically, Congress should be strengthening and not weakening the oversight tools that protect taxpayers, prevent waste, fraud, abuse, and ensure that agencies comply with congressional intent. The American people deserve confidence that every taxpayer's dollar is being spent responsibly. Long after we leave this room, precedents will be established that will remain when we walk out of this room. The question before is not whether it is a Republican or Democratic administration that occupies the White House. The question before is whether Congress will continue to faithfully exercise the constitutional responsibilities entrusted to us by the American people. That responsibility belongs to all of us, regardless of party, administration, or ideology. That responsibility belongs here in the appropriations room. Today, whether we're discussing border security, disaster response, aviation security, cybersecurity, or immigration enforcement, that principle remains unchanged. Strong government and accountable government are not opposing ideas. In America, they're supposed to go hand in hand. In fact, this year, Mr. Chairman, you worked with me to address concerns that we had with local communities in South Texas regarding ICE enforcement. And I appreciate your partnership and your committee staff and the willingness to engage on the issues. And we did solve the problem. And that was an example of oversight. And I say thank you, Mr. Chairman. We all recognize our responsibility to provide DHS with resources necessary to carry out its mission. But it is equally our responsibility to ensure that those resources are appropriated and that the department remains accountable to the public that it serves. Security and accountability are not competing values. They are complementary responsibilities. That's why I believe there's more work we can do regarding transparency, oversight, accountability, and we'll get there. As you know, Mr. Chairman, it is a process. We will get there to make sure that we are consistent with congressional intent. Likewise, I want to thank you also, Mr. Chairman, about some of the provisions that we added regarding certain sensitive areas on the border, regarding wall construction, and I thank you for those. We still need a few more historical sites and other sites that we need to protect, but again, I understand it is a process. Again, last thing, what I would like to say that, Mr. Chairman, your willingness to work together, and we're going to work together on this process, and I say thank you. I look forward to the debate that we'll have a little bit tonight, a lot of it tomorrow. The manager's amendment is a good amendment, but we'll talk about that process and move forward to getting a bipartisan bill. As we continue this debate tomorrow, we hope that we remember that the issue before us is larger than any one administration, any one department, or any one bill. It is about whether Congress will faithfully exercise the constitutional responsibilities entrusted to us by the Constitution. Again, James Madison called the power of the purse the most complete and effectual weapon of the people's representatives. That power carries with it equally an important obligation of oversight. The power of the purse and the duty of oversight are inseparable. The American people sent us to secure the homeland, protect taxpayers' dollars, and uphold the constitutional system that was preserved, will preserve both our liberty and our security, and it's done that for about 250 years. We can do all three. We should do all three, and if we do our job well, we will, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Balance? What balance?
Well,
What balance?
you're not the first guy to go over. I mean, before I get into my formal remarks, and I'll have something to say about my friend, Mr. Amadei, who's in his last formal markup, I just want to thank both of you, the chairman and the ranking member of the subcommittee. I think you've had the most difficult set of cards dealt to you, not just this year, but last year. I don't think you could have handled the situation together any better. You both should really be proud of how you've worked together, how you've maintained the dignity of both that subcommittee, this committee, and I think the House of Representatives. And I just want to personally and publicly thank you for the manner in which you've worked together. And I want to thank each and every member on that subcommittee who've probably gone through a more difficult challenge than any members of any other subcommittees have had to endure. And I'll say a little bit about this. I think that has a lot to do with what's happening in the United States Senate, particularly in the minority party, not much to do with what's happening over here. You've been dealt bad cards that I think were not your fault, but you've played them as well as them I could, and I'm personally very, very grateful, and I admire you. Don't get carried away, Amadei. Okay. I want to thank Chairman Amadei, Ranking Member Cuellar, Ranking Member DeLauro, and obviously thank all of you for being here. I know it's late and it's difficult. As we sit here, I know it's been a very long day, but I think it's worth taking a moment to remember why this process matters. The work before us is not simply procedural. It's about the committee fulfilling one of the most fundamental responsibilities of Congress. Article 1 of the Constitution grants the legislative branch the power of the purse. And with that authority comes the responsibility to fund the government, set priorities, and provide certainty to the agencies and personnel carrying out critical missions on behalf of the American people. Last year reminded us of what happens when politicians outside these committee walls undermine that appropriations process and disregard the bipartisan, bicameral work we all secured. Senate Democrats initiated the longest Department of Homeland Security shutdown in American history. These actions disrupted operations, created uncertainty for personnel, and unnecessarily complicated the mission of keeping Americans safe. We're still dealing with the ramifications mere hours ago on the House floor. I know we'll hear people bemoan today's reconciliation package, but the reality is that those voices should be directed to their colleagues across the rotunda. I hope it's a reminder of what is sacrificed when political obstruction is prioritized over constitutional order and responsibility. The lesson should be clear. Homeland Security cannot be governed through political brinksmanship and obstruction. The men and women of the DHS front line deserve certainty, and the American people deserve a government capable of carrying out its most basic responsibility, keeping them safe. That's exactly what the measure before us provides. This fiscal year 2027 Homeland Security bill funds every core mission of the department. It strengthens border security, supports immigration enforcement, and combats fentanyl and other illicit drugs. It reinforces the Trump administration's success in restoring operational control of the border by ensuring frontline personnel have the tools necessary to maintain it. This includes funding to sustain 22,000 Border Patrol agents, support for critical ICE detention capacity, and a doubling of last year's investment in body-worn cameras for DHS personnel. Additionally, the bill enhances Americans' posture in the Indo-Pacific by providing increased resources for Coast Guard operations to counter China and other adversaries. Investments in maritime domain awareness, unmanned systems, technology modernization, and expanded Coast Guard presence in the region help safeguard critical waterways, support allies and partners, and advance U.S. national security interests. Further, this measure recognizes that not every threat arrives at a border crossing. Some come through cyberspace. Others come in the form of a hurricane, tornado, or other disaster. This bill strengthens the capabilities needed to protect critical infrastructure, support resilience in our communities, and prepare for the threats that increasingly define the modern Homeland Security mission. This bill ensures a multidimensional approach to security at all levels, from cyber defenses, protecting critical networks, to planning for major national events like the 2028 Olympics and every challenge that falls between. This measure provides the tools necessary to keep Americans safe. In sum, we remember that security is often measured by what does not happen: the attack prevented, the disaster mitigated, and the community protected. The bill before us strengthens the people and capabilities responsible for delivering those outcomes every day. And before I yield back, I must recognize someone who made it possible, my good friend Mark Amadei. Over the years, Mark has earned a reputation for approaching difficult problems with clear eyes and a healthy skepticism of easy answers. He understands that governing is rarely a choice between right and wrong. More often, it demands a judgment to put the country's interests ahead of political convenience. That mindset has certainly served this committee and the subcommittee that he has so ably led. In the face of headwinds that would have tested anyone's patience, Mark never lost sight of the fundamental purpose of the work before us: ensuring government functions, missions are carried out, and that the American people are served and protected. He didn't view appropriators and appropriations as an exercise in headlines, despite possessing a wit that occasionally ensured he generated a few of them. But he's always viewed our work as an exercise in responsibility. As he leads his final appropriations bill in Congress, I think it's fitting that the measure before us reflects the same approach. It's grounded in reality, focused on mission, and committed to ensuring our agencies have the resources necessary to carry out their responsibilities. Congress is stronger because of Chairman Amadei's service and, frankly, his partnership with his ranking member, Mr. Cuellar. This committee is stronger because of their leadership, and the appropriations process is stronger because of their commitment to it. Long after the headlines of the day are forgotten, the institutions that they together helped strengthen and the results that they accomplished will endure. That's the mark of a meaningful public service on both their parts. So I sincerely thank you, particularly Mr. Amadei, since we're losing you. Thankfully, Mr. Cuellar, we're not losing you. I will miss the privilege and the sheer fun of serving alongside you. And while I could lament further, I know that he'd rather just get business done. And so with that, I yield back. I now recognize my good friend, the ranking member of the full committee, Ms. Delora, for her opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Cole, Chairman Amadei, Ranking Member Cuellar. I also want to join my colleagues in congratulating Chairman Amadei on his retirement. Let me just say, I want to just thank you for your serious deliberation, your integrity in the process, your commitment to this country. Your professionalism, I've always said, really enjoyed our conversations, enjoyed working with you, and your good humor. You took your job very seriously, but I might say, unlike many others here, you didn't take yourself seriously, and that contributes to our ability to be able to get things done. So thank you. It's been a wonderful opportunity for me to get to work with you, Mark. And I wish you obviously the very, very best in any endeavor that you engage yourself in, and I know it will be a successful one. So my congratulations to you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say a thank you to the committee staff, to Shannon McCulley, Jamie Wise, Jim Ellsworth for the minority, Paul Anstein, Anna Lanier, Fisher, Fern Gibbons, Ashley Truluck, Alessandra Ramirez, and Nkosi Thomas, the majority. Again, thank you for all of your hard work in bringing these bills to fruition. I am opposed to the bill under consideration today. The American people are demanding substantial reforms to how ICE and the Border Patrol operate. They want strong guardrails to protect our communities. They want strong reforms to protect our communities from continued abuse at the hands of masked, armed federal agents who have harassed, detained, beaten, and even killed American citizens with no accountability. From the outset, we have maintained that we will not provide another penny in funding for ICE or the Border Patrol without substantial reforms to how these agencies operate. But this bill provides more than $10 billion for ICE and nearly $7 billion for the Border Patrol. And while I welcome the incremental measures the majority has included in this bill, which make progress towards some of the reforms necessary to protect our communities, including a prohibition on the detention and deportation of U.S. citizens, they still fall far short of what is required to earn our support. These agencies have broken the law. In January alone, ICE violated nearly 100 court orders, which the chief federal judge in Minnesota, I might add a Republican appointee, estimated was more than some federal agencies have violated during their entire existence. Last week, Secretary Mullen testified that he is under no obligation to follow court orders he simply does not agree with. That the head of the largest federal law enforcement agency in the country would show such flagrant disregard for the American legal system should offend anyone who respects the rule of law. I cannot help but notice the contrast in how this administration treats people based on their perceived political affiliations. If you assault police officers and storm the Capitol because you believe the president's lie that the election was stolen from him, you will be pardoned, and you could even get a taxpayer-funded payout, even though the latest reporting shows nearly 100 of the January 6th rioters have been accused of new crimes, ranging from grand larceny and burglary to child molestation. And I have the documentation. I just am not riffing. I have the documentation. But if you exercise your First Amendment right to peacefully protest how ICE or the Border Patrol are conducting themselves, you can be beaten, harassed, detained, or even killed. And the Trump administration will block investigations into the misconduct while Republicans in Congress insist on providing billions more in funding for the agencies that abused you in the first place. The majority of Americans support strong protections from ICE abuses. Agents must get a warrant from a judge before kicking in someone's door. They must remove their masks and display identification. We must prohibit operations at schools, hospitals, and houses of worship, end racial profiling, and allow for independent investigations into misconduct. That is how we keep our communities safe, how we protect the rights of all Americans. That is how we regain the trust of the American people that this administration has demolished. While providing more funding for ICE and the Border Patrol, this bill cuts funding for TSA, cybersecurity, and the internal watchdogs that investigate abuse within DHS. After refusing to fund TSA for months unless we also gave more money to ICE and the Border Patrol, now the plan is to cut TSA funding by nearly $350 million. After President Trump's war of choice with Iran has heightened the risk of cyber attacks, the plan is to cut more than $250 million from cybersecurity, all while providing more funding for ICE and the Border Patrol without many of the substantial reforms the American people are demanding. As we speak, House Republican leadership are working to circumvent this committee, give the Trump administration another $70 billion with no strings attached. There is no accountability. There is no oversight. If the measure passes, DHS will have secured more than $260 billion that this committee did not approve. I repeat, this committee did not approve $260 billion. Read the Constitution. Who has the power of the purse? It's Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7. I believe firmly, and I will always stand up for the appropriations process, and I believe that firmly, and I believe that Chairman Cole shares that belief, that partisan reconciliation bills are no substitute for the work that we do here. But you have to see the absurdity in refusing to include substantive guardrails against ICE and Border Patrol, while also giving them nearly $17 billion on top of the $70 billion Republicans are trying to give them outside of this committee and the $191 billion they have outside of this committee. And they cut funding for cybersecurity, TSA, and internal watchdogs who prevent abuse within the department. The reforms we are seeking for these agencies are not unreasonable, nor are they impractical. They are popular, responsible, and necessary to ensure the safety of our constituents. I encourage my colleagues to work with us to adopt all of these reforms and protect our communities. Until then, I remain opposed to this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlelady. A gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Molinar, is recognized for general remarks on the bill.
Chairman, I rise in support of the fiscal year 27 Homeland Security Appropriations Bill. This bill protects America by restoring our borders and ensures that our law enforcement agencies have the level of support they need to properly safeguard the homeland. Last year, Michigan was a target of illicit smuggling activity. Several Chinese nationals were caught attempting to smuggle biological materials into the country, which could have devastated the U.S. agriculture sector. While we were able to catch these smugglers, it is unknown how many more got through in recent years. This bill counters the CCP-backed smuggling rings poisoning our communities with fentanyl and bringing dangerous goods into the country. It also includes funding for at-risk infrastructure, investing in projects like the Lake Shamrock Dam that is in my district, which is at a heightened risk of failure. The funding in this bill will protect our constituents and make our communities safer. I want to thank Chairman Amodei and all of my colleagues, urge all of my colleagues to support the bill. With that, I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. The gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Hoyer, is recognized for general remarks on the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I must say I'm not quite as sanguine as you are about the process. I'll talk a little bit about that. First, I want to thank my friend Mark Amodei for his leadership, his spirit, his collegiality, and his willingness to work across the aisle. I want to thank Mr. Cuellar, who I know met your outreach with a hand across the aisle to work together. And so I appreciate the remarks of the chairman as to the work you two have done. But I must say, in 45 years as a member of the Congress with focus on this committee, I cannot recall a situation in which we have met to consider an appropriation bill for the coming fiscal year the same week that the majority pushes through the House a partisan reconciliation bill to fund that same department for that current fiscal year. This is not just an absence of regular order. It is complete and utter disorder and undermining of the appropriations process. I don't know that there was a single hearing by almost all the members of Congress on what they have done, which is exactly how we could also describe this administration's approach to immigration enforcement and border security. Instead of taking a common sense approach based on a bipartisan consensus, the Trump approach is to terrorize citizens and non-citizens alike, to bust into private homes without warrants, guns drawn, to send masked agents with inadequate training to confront protesters. I saw television pictures like that. It was in Chile. and to threaten the closure of customs facilities at busy airports because of political difference with city leaders, all while pardoning criminals who agree with him politically and declare their loyalty to him. Mr. Chairman, the reconciliation bill the majority just passed to the floor provides about $65 billion to ICE and CBP. This bill would spend another $28 billion. $92.5 billion appropriated for these two agencies in 1 week. My, we've got a big deficit. We've got to worry about the deficit and the debt. It's trillions of dollars. Are you bipolar? Add to that $139.5 billion we gave ICE and CBP in the big, ugly bill last summer. Now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody who's watching. CPB. Take a pill. Big ugly bill. CBP, and ICE are now totally based upon the appropriations of last reconciliation bill, this reconciliation bill, the third most highly funded armed force in the world. Only the United States and China are funded at a higher level. Even Russia does not meet the $232 billion in those bills that ICE and CBP. And with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, ICE was funded at 86% during the so-called shutdown, and CBP at about 84% during that so-called shutdown. The national debt apparently does not have any relationship to ICE, CBP, or the Department of Defense. Excuse me, it was not just a $3.5 trillion tax bill in the big bad bill. It was, according to dynamic scoring, which all of you think is such a good alternative, $4.7 trillion. Don't talk to me about the debt going up. I'm concerned about that. But when you pass these pieces of legislation and don't pay for them, it's not as if because it's for law enforcement or for defense that it doesn't affect the debt. We should be asking ourselves, why are we doing this at all? Why are we getting for our money? What are we getting in terms of reforming a system that is clearly broken? What are we getting in terms of protections for our rights and freedoms under the Constitution? 702 is a piece of legislation that's having a hard time getting through. Why? Because you want to follow, many of us, constitutional requirements. This bill does nothing to prevent the kind of tragedies we saw earlier this year in Minneapolis. The families of Alex Preddy, Renee Good, and others who were injured by military assaults deserve better than this bill. And if you create a weaponization fund, Ms. Preddy, Ms. Good, and Mr. Preddy deserve a very large part of that, not the people who assaulted the Capitol on January 6th. The TSA agents who are overworked and underpaid deserve better. All those working at cybersecurity and infrastructure security agencies whose funding is being cut to the detriment of American safety deserve better. And the millions of people in our country who are deeply afraid of the next violent, anti-Semitic attack against a synagogue, school, or community center deserve better than the paltry funding for the nonprofit security grant program in this bill. $232 billion for ICE and CBP. We ought to be funding that program to protect our Jewish friends and any other persons who are being attacked, at a much larger sum than we are. Everyone affected by this bill deserves better. So let's do better. I want to thank the ranking member, Mr. Cuellar. I want to thank the chairman of our committee. I want to thank again Mr. Amade for their good work. That professionalism and respect in the process is what gives me hope that we can do better together. But this bill, especially taken in the broader context of the appropriation process and this administration's approach to Homeland Security, poses serious questions this committee has to consider before moving forward. It is therefore not a bill I can support. I yield back.
Thank you, gentlemen. The gentleman from Washington State, Mr. Newhouse, is recognized for general remarks on the bill.
Thank you, Chairman Cole, Ranking Member DeLauro, Mr. Amade, Mr. Cuellar. Before I begin my comments, I just want to say, as I think the only hop farmer in Congress, and maybe the only cherry farmer in Congress, when you have a day filled with beer, albeit non-alcoholic, and cherries, life's pretty good. So, thank you, Ms. DeLauro, for that. So on this bill, a lot's been said. I'll keep my comments within the time frame, I hope. But this is a critical bill. The Department of Homeland Security has one of the toughest jobs. You know, all 12 of our appropriations committees are important, but meeting the challenges of keeping the American public safe is huge. It's a huge responsibility. I want to thank Mr. Amade, Mr. Cuellar, the entire subcommittee. You know, Mark, you've got a unique sense of humor. I love what Mr. DeLauro said about you. You take your job seriously, not yourself. It makes it a lot of fun. It truly does. And we all look forward to the subcommittee hearings. And I appreciate your determined ability to do the right thing and your leadership in making that happen. So thank you for that. This bill covers so many different things. You know, I led a task force on fentanyl use in my district. We put a lot of resources into controlling fentanyl coming across our borders, as the chairman of the China Committee already mentioned. We do a lot of things that give assistance to firefighters, to police protection, to make sure that those disasters that we see around the country are taken care of, from whether it's high hazard dams or many of the other things that we have to be aware of. The visa programs are important. We cover that too. And being a farmer, as I mentioned, some of the language in here that addresses some of the programs that we depend on to get our workers across the border is huge. And I just want to thank you for the attention that you put to that. So we're going to have a long debate about this bill. I know it's of high interest on everybody in this committee, everybody in this Congress. But I just want to mention the fact that while this bill may not be perfect, it may not have every single one of each of our priorities included, there's going to be some heartburn, there's going to be some tough decisions, but tough decisions have to be made due to budget constraints and other things. And I myself will even have some heartburn about some of the things that we decide on. But overall, let's not lose faith in the appropriation process, which has always been lengthy. We've proven that today. It's been thoughtful, from the bill drafting to the markups to the passage in the House, all the way to the conferencing and reconciling our differences of the Senate, and with it finally being signed into law. So let's not lose faith in each of those steps that we take that brings us to a final product that will truly benefit and provide for the American people. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back and encourage all my colleagues to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank the gentleman for his remarks. The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Bishop, is recognized for general remarks on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I cannot support the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill before us today, I want to thank Chairman Cole, Chairman Amade, Ranking Members DeLauro and Cuellar, as well as accolades to the staffs, both majority and minority, for your bipartisan work to reach as much of a consensus as possible on this bill. I do want to join the chorus of members in expressing my accolades and our thanks to Chairman Amadei for his hard work and his selfless service. And I wish you Godspeed in your future endeavors. I'm deeply concerned, however, that the measure that we're considering today still does not include the common sense guardrails that the American people have been asking for over the past 2 years. Today, federal immigration enforcement agents are continuing to conduct warrantless searches of private homes, often masked to hide their identity. They're conducting immigration enforcement operations at sensitive locations like schools, hospitals, and houses of worship. President Trump's big ugly bill, passed by congressional Republicans last summer, slashed Americans' health care and food assistance programs in order to provide a massive $75 billion in new funding for immigration and customs enforcement. But the bill before us today seeks to eliminate any internal oversight meant to help ensure that the Department of Homeland Security respects American civil liberties and treats detained individuals with care and with dignity. The bill cuts funding for the Department of Homeland Security's Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. It also reduces funding for the Office of Inspector General, which works to uncover waste, fraud, and abuse in the department. It totally guts funding for the Office of Immigration Detention Ombudsman, which leaves detention centers with limited oversight and limited accountability. These essential offices were created by Congress to ensure that we have the information and the resources needed to conduct proper oversight of the department. The last thing we should be doing is relinquishing our oversight authority to the President and the Office of Management and Budget. Just as troubling is the fact that the bill underfunds the offices and programs that are meant to protect Americans from foreign threats. It slashes over $250 million from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, leaving the agency less capable of defending against foreign threats to our government institutions, our power grids, and hospitals. The bill cuts over $347 million from the Transportation Security Agency and does nothing to stop the Trump administration in its attempts to eliminate employee collective bargaining rights at the agency. While I cannot support the bill in its current form, I'm encouraged to see that the majority has prioritized disaster relief funding and FEMA grants in the bill, as well as increased funding for the United States Coast Guard and the Secret Service. There are bipartisan provisions in the legislation, but they are diminished by the chaos and the lawlessness that the Trump administration has unleashed on the American people in the name of immigration enforcement. It appears that congressional Republicans have moved forward with yet another partisan immigration enforcement bill to further supercharge that chaos to the tune of an additional $70 billion. The Trump administration claimed that its deportation policy would focus on violent felons who are in the United States illegally. But over the past 2 years, ICE has aggressively swept up law-abiding citizens and immigrant families and American citizens alike, even killing 2 Americans in Minnesota. The American people are asking us to protect them and their neighbors from federal overreach and to help ensure that ICE and CPB behave like every other professional law enforcement agency. We need judicial warrant requirements, a ban on mask agents. We need to prohibit immigration operations at sensitive locations like schools and churches, and interracial profiling, and to allow independent investigations into ICE misconduct. This Homeland Security Appropriations bill is not worthy of presentation to the American people. It does not secure our homeland. It represents overreach by the government and abuse of the American people. It begs for transparency and guardrails. So I urge my colleagues to vote no. We can do better. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, gentlemen. The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Subcommittee, is recognized for general remarks on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today in strong support of the FY27 Homeland Security Bill, which provides the Department of Homeland Security with the stability and resources that it needs to protect our nation. Now, before I address this bill, I want to take a moment to note what occurred on the House floor today, as it was mentioned previously already. For the fifth time this year, this body voted to fully fund the Department of Homeland Security following a shutdown of about 115 days that did not need to happen. The repeated disruptions to DHS operations, to our border security, our aviation security, our counterterrorism mission, all are not without consequences, and the responsibility for that disruption lies squarely on every single person in this room and out of this room that repeatedly voted to defund Homeland Security in all our efforts. That is precisely why this bill matters so much. So let's not forget why we're here. Maybe it's correct that in no time in history or recent history we've seen both happen at the same time, but it wasn't by choice of this side of the room, certainly not. We have funded out of this room the FY27 package that then got caught up in politics and unfortunately undid the work, the good work done by both sides in this room to come to an agreement on the FY26 budget. And that's why what happened today on the floor was necessary. The FY27 Homeland Security Appropriations Bill is an opportunity to turn the page, to move from stopgates and shutdowns to stable, long-term funding that DHS has been denied for too long. I support this bill and urge my colleagues to prioritize stability and certainty for men and women who secure our homeland. Back home in Arizona and across my entire district, we see firsthand the consequences of DHS funding uncertainty. The impacts are immediate for families, for frontline workers, and for local communities that depend on a fully functioning Homeland Security system. As Vice Chair of this Subcommittee and House Appropriations on Homeland Security, I take this responsibility seriously. The men and women who secure our nation deserve certainty. Every delay weakens readiness and strains the workforce responsible for protecting Arizona communities and communities across our country represented in this room that I believe everybody here cares about. Core government functions require steady, uninterrupted support because America's security is not negotiable. Already more than 1,100 TSA officers have resigned this year, and I have heard directly from individuals who have gone over 100 days without pay. That should have never happened. This level of uncertainty is unsustainable and makes recruitment and retention even more difficult for the agencies that protect every single airport around this country. Families across Arizona, especially in southern Arizona, are feeling these effects every day as border-related challenges and enforcement pressures continue at the local level. We cannot allow the stop-and-go funding cycles and undermine the readiness of the critical agencies that protect communities. We must work long-term stability that ensures DHS can carry out its mission without any disruptions. This bill makes that possible. In this bill, we see $34.1 billion for Federal Emergency Management Agency for Disaster Preparedness, Response, and Recovery, $18.3 billion for U.S. Customs and Border Protection to secure the border, stop illicit drugs like fentanyl, and support the lawful trade and travel that Arizona and the nation rely on every day. $14.6 billion for U.S. Coast Guard for maritime safety, search, and rescue. $11.2 billion for Transportation Security Administration to secure airports and ensure safe air travel for millions of Americans. Together, these investments support the core functions of Homeland Security, from disaster response to border security to transportation. This bill strengthens efforts to counter fentanyl, support coordination with law enforcement, and improve disaster preparedness and response. It also increases support for firefighters and first responders so that they can staff up, upgrade equipment, and respond faster to all needs. And with the 50 seconds I have left, I'll say this. This year, Mr. Chairman, marks the 20th anniversary of my U.S. citizenship. I became a citizen in 2006 in September. I'm a proud immigrant. I'm proud of the heritage that I have. I'm proud of the work that we've done. I'm proud of this country, of course, and I'm grateful for it. I'm an adopted son into this nation. And with that comes with a responsibility of following our laws and making sure that we protect our land as well in our homeland. That's why this bill is so important. I am all about improving the immigration system and the process to enter legally into this country and work here if we want to, or stay here and study here and everything that comes with that. And there are laws that we have to abide by as well, and a land that we have to protect. We can't pretend like there aren't bad people trying to also come into this country. Many are coming in here to work and make a better life and pursuing that American dream, but many as well are coming in to do harm into our country. And that's why this bill matters so much in every single aspect, in every single area. So from personal experience, someone that actually went through the process, I don't know who else in this room has been able to do that and say that they went through the every step process to earn the work permit, then the green card, and then finally citizenship. And 16 years later, be elected to the United States Congress. No country in the world would ever allow that to anyone else except in this nation, the most grateful, generous nation on the face of the earth, also the most powerful nation and the most targeted nation. So that's what we have to defend it, and that's why this bill matters. So I urge my colleagues to support this bill. I yield back, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen. The gentlelady from Ohio's captors recognized for reactions to the bill.
Thank you. Chairman Cole, Ranking Member DeLauro, and dear Chair Amade, we're glad you're with us for a while longer. We thank you so very much for your service, not just to your district, but to our country, and always with good humor. Were you saying something? Oh, okay. I'm deeply concerned about the priorities in this particular bill. Nearly $100 billion. Just think about that. And I'm concerned because it diverts funding away from critical services such as the TSA and Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, while directing billions of additional dollars to ICE and to CBP. This increase comes without the reforms necessary to ensure these agencies remain accountable to the American people. It's really too top-heavy, in my opinion, and the funding for policing is upside down. We really need more money filtered back to our local police and sheriffs. The facilities they work in are like mid-20th century. They can't afford to pay their officers, those who are on the ground every day. The jails are a mess. They're old, they're dilapidated, and yet we see these private prisons going up with all this money from the Homeland Security and what they're paid, their lack of training. We wouldn't have had Minnesota without, local police wouldn't have done that. And so it's upside down, and to me, it doesn't do enough for the locals that are with us all the time and have their hands full. We need to reverse that flow of money. It's such a great deal of money. And honestly, I don't know how much is going to private prisons, but I invite anybody to come to all the counties that I currently represent and will represent in the future. Just look at the jails. That's all I ask you to do. And look at what the people who work there, what they're paid. So I see all this money going out. When the Homeland Security came in, and I brought the money in to build a building, we tried to attach it to the sheriff's department in Ottawa County, Ohio. I said, no, we need our own building. Boy, they spent a load of money too. And so I'm saying to you, be responsible. Be responsible in the expenditure of this amount of money. I am very concerned about these private prisons as opposed to prisons and jails where you have an elected sheriff, where you have chiefs of police that are known in the community and respected. This is upside down. And I represent a border district, by the way. In fact, one of our defense wings has the Northern Border Watch. So we have other assets to try to protect our border in the Great Lakes region. In my opinion, this bill makes America less safe, not more safe. And for months, my constituents have been consistently calling our office to demand fundamental changes at ICE and CBP. We can't even get immigration issues, whether it's weddings or trying to bring people from another country. It's behind. We never used to have this backup. I can't be the only member of Congress experiencing that in my office. And the salaries that some of these people get at Homeland compared to what our local officers are paid, no, not good enough. More of that money has to come back locally. The Coast Guard has removed personnel from our region. I won't go into all the details, there's not enough time to do that, but in a Great Lakes region, that's not a good decision, whoever made that decision. And in terms of the FEMA, the federal emergency, since that's gone under Homeland, we have more problems. The readiness that was before FEMA when it was independent, when it went into Homeland, it's gotten worse every year. So if you just look at Texas and what happened there, just think about it. Think about the real proof of what these changes have meant. So instead of recognizing the urgent need for reform, this bill gives ICE and CBP $16.8 billion more, while cutting oversight offices across the department. It does so at the expense of other services America rely on, such as TSA, the airports. I go through the Detroit airport all the time. There's more confusion now with TSA because of all this commotion that's happening at the federal level. After Republicans forced TSA employees to go months without a paycheck, that's never happened, causing havoc at our airports. This bill defunds TSA by $350 million. So explain that one to me. That means job cuts and longer lines at airports. Vast increases at the federal level really take so much away from our local policing authorities who are with us every day. So again, too top-heavy and not agile, with poor training of so many of these individuals that go out on the street. Additionally, as co-chair of the Great Lakes Task Force, I'd like to direct the committee's attention to this bill's minimal progress on ice breaking. Since 2013, inadequate ice-breaking capabilities on the Great Lakes have cost the American economy over $2 billion and more than 10,000 jobs. The Great Lakes are in desperate need of a new heavy-duty Coast Guard icebreaker to transport commodities and from manufacturing facilities across the Great Lakes. We need $250 million to finish the job. The bill only includes $30 million. Great. Won't work. Ice breaking on the Great Lakes is a matter of economic life or death for our communities, and rather than making the necessary investments today to solve the problem, this bill all but guarantees the shipbuilding process will drag on for more years. Unless we adequately fund a Great Lakes icebreaker, we'll be hurting jobs and losing money, not saving it. Finally, Mr. Chairman, let me just say, the bill dramatically cuts our nascent cyber defenses. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and non-state actors are launching wave upon wave of cyber attacks, and we're not catching up. Americans are demanding reform. We need reform at Homeland Security, not showering them with more money. We expect excellence, and we need help at the local level first. Thank you, and I yield back, and obviously, I don't support this bill.
Thank you, gentlelady. The gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Wasserman Schultz, is recognized for opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank my friend, Mr. Cuellar, my classmate from 2004, for his work, and also a farewell to my friend, Mr. Amadei, who on so many occasions has made us laugh and not taken himself too seriously, as has been said, and used his wry sense of humor to break up these many hours that we spend in these markups. And very often, he and I have been able to find a way to work together. And what's amazing about this committee is that oftentimes that coming together, because of our culture and because we do hold on to at least a few shreds of it, allows us to stand up spontaneously. An idea comes out of someone's mouth, enters the brain of someone who hears it in this committee, and they end up being able to come together and solve a problem, which I have been pleased to do that with Mr. Amadei. So I wish you the best in your retirement, and it's been a pleasure to work with you and look forward to the months ahead. In spite of that, though, I rise in strong opposition to this bill to give Trump's Department of Homeland Security yet another blank check for ICE agents to terrorize our neighbors with impunity. Since our last DHS markup a year ago, here's just a fraction of what's taken place. 2 American citizens were murdered by DHS agents. Several dozen people have died in ICE detention from preventable causes as the direct result of cruel medical neglect. ICE has illegally detained dozens of Americans and lied about it. More than 145,000 U.S. citizen children separated from their parents. More than a third of them are under the age of 6. Dozens of these families have been ripped apart a second time after being subjected to Trump's family separation policy in his first term. And these United States citizen children whose parents are ripped away by ICE are lucky in comparison to the children subjected to brutal internment in ICE camps or the children deported with their parents to nations that they have never known. My community in South Florida has been among the hardest hit. Our Republican governor required all police officers in Florida to be deputized by ICE for immigration purposes. That takes our local law enforcement off the beat, diverting limited local resources from stopping real criminals to make them do ICE's dirty work. And my neighbors have watched in horror as the Trump administration trampled the Everglades to build their so-called alligator Alcatraz internment camp. I've been there twice, and the conditions that I have witnessed firsthand are deeply inhumane. Humans being locked in cages, actual cages, with no due process, beaten and pepper sprayed by guards, drinking dirty water and eating weeks-old food. The Republican state government spent nearly $1 billion of taxpayer money to build and run this monument to cruelty. That money came out of our Hurricane Response Fund. You know, we are slightly at risk for hurricanes in Florida. Seems natural that they would take that money, doesn't it? And the contracts were handed out as corrupt political favors. And when we learned this facility would finally be shut down, was it because Trump and DeSantis had a change of heart? No, it was because they knew they were going to lose in court, because they were violating the Constitution and using our money to do it. They knew they would be held accountable by the law, by congressional oversight, by the community advocates and faith leaders who stood outside the gates and prayed for their loved ones. The secrets that Trump tried to hide in Alligator Alcatraz are out, and the lies have been debunked. So how, after the corruption, brutality, and dehumanization we've seen, does this bill give Homeland Security? How does it give Homeland Security a blank check to build dozens of industrial scale warehouse internment camps modeled off of this one? How can you see the crying children in Texas, the murdered protesters in Minnesota, the shattered families everywhere, and say that we should give ICE more money, less accountability, and no restrictions? How can the Republicans on this committee look at what happened in my backyard and say they want to see it in your backyard too? Or are you just looking away? Our country is not better off after a year and a half of Trump's blood-soaked, scorched earth assault on our communities. Hundreds of thousands of law-abiding TPS recipients from Haiti, Venezuela, and elsewhere who have no criminal record have had their work permits revoked and their lawful status terminated. This means gutting the workforce in critical sectors like healthcare and construction, driving up prices for groceries, repairs, and health and childcare, all while costing American jobs. Florida has had the largest share of immigrants lose legal status. And what's our reward? 30,000 jobs lost over the last year. Anyone from my neighborhood could tell you why. Immigrants don't take jobs, they make jobs. As entrepreneurs, consumers, and taxpayers, they contribute to our economy and our livelihoods. It's unconscionable that Trump is sending good people who have lived here for years back to Haiti, where violent gangs are running the show, or to Venezuela, where the same brutal regime still clings to power, now with U.S. backing. Or the Cubans who came decades ago fleeing communism are being arrested at their immigration appointments and dumped across the border in Mexico. But the most unacceptable thing is that this bill responds to all of Trump's unnecessary, wasteful, counterproductive cruelty with a pat on the back instead of imposing badly needed reforms. Just as the cost of this outrageous crackdown on law-abiding people falls on working Americans, so too will the economic consequences. The combination of backbreaking tariffs, a shrinking workforce, and Trump's self-inflicted energy crisis are already more than most small businesses can take. In South Florida, we're already seeing the shortages, closures, and bankruptcy. Let me be clear. We cannot afford to send tens of billions more dollars to ICE brutality. The cost to our national conscience, our economy, and our Constitution is too much to bear. And if this committee intends to drive us further towards moral and financial bankruptcy, you'll be doing it without my vote. I look forward to offering my amendments tomorrow, and I yield back the balance of my time. Excellent. Then we will have a great time together. We sure will.
Gentlelady from New Jersey, Ms. Watson Coleman, is recognized for general comments on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stand in opposition to this bill. As we debate funding the Department of Homeland Security, thousands of ICE agents continue to terrorize communities across this country through their mass detain and deport operation. And it doesn't seem to matter who they target. According to the Brookings Institute, at least 400,000 people have been booked into ICE detention within the United States since the beginning of this administration. And around 70,000 people are currently held in detention. Out of those detained, roughly 70% have no criminal convictions, and the majority of the other 30% have committed minor offenses, including traffic violations. 90% of DHS's facilities are operated by for-profit private prison corporations like Core Civic and the GEO Group. The GEO Group actually operates a center in my home state of New Jersey, Delaney Hall. I'm pretty sure you've heard about Delaney Hall, the horrible conditions, the unsanitary food, the lack of proper medical care, and the cruelty of it all. Sadly, none of this matters to GEO Group or this administration, as the company has a $1 billion 15-year contract with ICE to operate the facility. To them, every inedible meal, every shortened doctor's visit, every delayed visit from family members or attorneys and court dates means just greater profit for GEO Group executives and investors. Delaney Hall is just one of many facilities perpetrating these abuses across the country. Yet here we are debating whether to give ICE $10 billion for FY27 so they can put more people in cages and pad GEO Group profit margins so they can reward the recipients of GEO Group donations. Republicans have already helped this president supercharge ICE under the big ugly bill and now want to give them a slush fund with no safety rails? Unacceptable. All of us saw with our own eyes ICE's brutality in the streets of Minnesota this past winter. 2 American citizens were killed in cold blood. How can Congress fund ICE without including the simplest of reforms, like having officers present visible identification and allowing their face to be seen? Very minor reforms these are. Aside from the outrageous funding and the lack of reforms to ICE, this bill has other terrible provisions. It prohibits federal aid to certain localities that have state or local laws limiting their participation with ICE and CBP. It imposes a higher burden of proof on asylum applicants. It prohibits USCIS from issuing work authorization to certain immigrants awaiting adjudication of their asylum applications. Finally, this legislation drastically cuts funding for cybersecurity and infrastructure protection, despite an increase in cyber attacks over the last several years, and despite the fact that we're in the middle of a war of Trump's choosing. As we approach the midterm elections and Americans' trust in our democracy has been shaken, this bill would make our elections less secure by limiting DHS's ability to help states protect the nation from foreign actors. In the last 18 months, Trump and his administration have shown its true desire to make America the least welcoming place on earth for anyone who is not white. Why else would white South Africans be the only ones welcomed as refugees, while Sudanese, Haitians, and Palestinians, and many others are struggling for real horrific conditions in their home countries? I don't understand how any of my colleagues on the other side can see what's happening, see the bill before them, and think that this is okay. Funding this DHS bill would be a rubber stamp on the cruelty of this administration, and I, for one, will not be a part of it. Unless major changes are made, I not only stand in opposition to this legislation, I condemn it for the corrupt bargain that it represents. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady. The gentlelady from Illinois, Mr. Underwood, is recognized for remarks on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today we're considering a bill that's supposed to make Americans safer. That should be the goal of every choice we make about our investments in Homeland Security. Unfortunately, my Republican colleagues keep making the opposite choice. Over and over, Democrats have raised serious concerns about policy choices at the Department of Homeland Security that have made us all less safe and betrayed our American values. We have demanded transparency. We've demanded accountability. We've demanded answers about detention conditions, civil rights violations, deaths in custody, violence in our streets, due process failures, corruption, and the treatment of American citizens and lawful residents caught up in immigration enforcement operations. Instead of answers, we've been met with silence. Instead of accountability, we have impunity. And now Secretary Mullen is asking Congress to reward his department's historically bad behavior with tens of billions of additional taxpayer dollars, even though he has never appeared before this committee to explain how he's spending the money he already has or why he thinks he deserves any more. In the Big Ugly Bill last year, DHS received an unprecedented level of new funding, tens of billions of dollars for immigration enforcement, detention, and deportations, with no meaningful guardrails to stop their abuses. And then, just hours ago, Republicans passed the Big Ugly Bill Part 2, doing the same thing. That's enough money for years of the same reckless, wasteful operations that we've seen from Trump's DHS. So why does this bill provide billions more on top of that? Where's all this taxpayer money going, and why won't Secretary Mullen come here to tell us? Of course, this bill doesn't increase funding for everything. Oh no, in fact, it cuts funding for oversight, cybersecurity, election protection, and much more. It slashes funding for the Office of the Inspector General, the Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, and the Citizenship and Immigration Services Ombudsman. The priorities of my Republican colleagues could not possibly be clearer. They are choosing not to support accountability, transparency, or the rule of law, and we already know why. Over the last year, Americans have seen report after report of disturbing conditions within DHS detention facilities and immigration enforcement operations. We've seen detainees be abused, take their own lives, and we've even heard about alleged homicides at the hands of federal officers. But this bill punishes the Inspector General and makes it harder to document and expose those types of abuses. That makes it easier for the Trump administration to bury them. During my own oversight visits to detention facilities, I have witnessed unsafe and unsanitary conditions, inadequate medical care, overcrowding, prolonged detention, and persistent failures to protect the health and safety of people in government custody. This bill lets agents keep snatching people up off the street at churches, at schools, and in communities across the country without meaningful consequences. And it punishes legal immigrants while rewarding for-profit detention contractors with even more taxpayer dollars and less oversight. In other words, it makes it harder for regular people to follow the rules and easier for private prisons to break them. The Trump administration's mass detention scheme does not make America safer, but it does make a few rich people richer, which could lead some folks to wonder if that was the real goal all along. Investigative reporting has revealed that DHS has been paying prices far above the market rate for empty warehouses owned by companies that President Trump and members of his administration are invested in. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to draw your attention to an article titled, "A New Level of Corruption. DHS bought ICE warehouses from Trump cronies for 10 times the markup." I have extra copies here in case anyone hasn't seen it and read it for themselves. Well, families are being separated and communities are living in fear. The president and his friends appear to be making enormous profits from taxpayer-funded scams. Congress should be demanding answers, not funding even more waste, not funding even more fraud and abuse while defunding oversight. Foreign adversaries are increasingly targeting American hospitals, schools, utilities, transportation systems, businesses, and local governments. The American people deserve a Department of Homeland Security that actually keeps us safe from threats like these while upholding the Constitution and remaining accountable to Congress and the taxpayers that we serve. This bill fails at every step. I strongly oppose this legislation, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. And I yield back.
Thank you, gentlelady, for remarks. Gentleman from New York, Mr. Morelli, is recognized for general remarks on the bill.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. I, too, want to thank Chairman Amadei for his service to this institution, to this country. So thank you, sir, for all you've done. To Ranking Member Cuellar, my friend, thanks for your good work, and to the chair and ranking member of the full committee for all your work, and again, for the staff that does such tremendous work and spends so much time on this. You know, through two now reconciliation bills, Republicans have spent hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars, unjustifiably expanding the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement activities. Despite these unprecedented funds, we're here today debating a new blank check for President Trump's disastrous immigration policies. This bill fundamentally fails to impose the necessary reforms and legal limits that would guarantee that ICE and DHS cease spreading fear in immigrant communities and harming Americans like Renee Good and Alex Preddy, who have paid the price as citizens for simply exercising their First Amendment rights to protest. Most concerning, the bill leaves out the basic safeguards that Americans expect following violent incidents involving ICE personnel, like requiring judicial warrants, banning masks, prohibiting racial profiling, and mandating body cameras. And by slashing funding for the Office of Inspector General, this bill undermines the very office responsible for accountability, stripping away resources for civil rights and civil liberties and oversight. Those decisions will have consequences in communities like mine and those around the country. In fact, in my district, DHS has moved forward with plans to construct a new immigration detention facility in my district, in the heart of downtown Rochester, despite widespread concerns from local leaders and residents about safety, security, and community impact. Just weeks ago, I visited the Batavia Federal Detention Facility, where I met Omar Ramos Jimenez, a small business owner who has lived in my community for 30 years. His family, his home, and his life are in Rochester, New York. And despite complying with all check-ins and legal requirements and having 5 years work requirements that don't expire until 2030, he has a business, his connection with his family, his life, and his community are all in jeopardy. He's in a detention facility waiting for deportation back to Mexico, where he hasn't lived for 30 years. And when I visited this sweet, gentle man, all he kept saying was, "I just want to go home." But he didn't mean Mexico. He meant back home in Rochester, in the neighborhood, in the community. He has lived for 30 years in the parish where he is an active parishioner at St. Michael's Church. Whatever your view on immigration policy, humane treatment, legal transparency, and basic human dignity should be non-negotiable. Those principles should be reflected in the agencies we fund and the appropriation bills we write. This bill fails to meet that basic standard. You know, there was a time when people fleeing injustice could come to America, work hard, follow the rules, build a better life for themselves and their families. There was a path to the American dream. That's the dream that brought my great-grandparents here to New York Harbor so many years ago. But this administration is slamming the door shut. They're not focused on removing the worst of the worst. That's what President always said, rapists, murderers, the worst of the worst. They're focused on meeting quotas, creating fear, creating and advancing a political agenda. People who have spent years contributing to their communities are being treated as statistics in a messaging campaign. This administration has abandoned the American dream, not just for immigrants, but for all of us, because when hard work, decency, and playing by the rules no longer matter, something is fundamentally wrong in this country. Something about America is lost. I believe we can do better. Next year, I hope we will draft a bill that keeps Americans safe while upholding the values and principles that define us as a nation. I will oppose this legislation. I urge its defeat. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, gentlemen. The gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean, is recognized for opening remarks on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too rise this morning, in opposition to the 2027 Homeland Security Appropriations Bill and the cruelty it would fund. This bill makes America less safe and provides no meaningful guardrails or constitutional protections that Americans are demanding. I also want to emphasize the staggering taxpayer dollars that are being spent this week alone on ICE. Could somebody explain to me the arbitrary reconciliation deadline of today, perhaps so that the president can sign it before his big birthday bash? I don't understand it. And here we are with another appropriations bill that would provide $10 billion for ICE. Republicans rushed that second big beautiful bill through the partisan process to provide $38.5 billion in funding for ICE, while further increasing the federal budget deficit by more than $94 billion. The That is wasteful, duplicative, and fiscally irresponsible. If we're looking for ways to cut costs by eliminating spending like that, we should start right here and carve out ICE and CBP from this bill. Earlier this year, Americans witnessed ICE kill 2 of our fellow U.S. citizens. Instead of including the necessary reforms to protect Americans from grotesque federal government abuse like this bill does the exact opposite and rolls back meaningful oversight provisions. For example, the bill does not mandate that body cameras be worn. The bill does not require judicial warrants for arrests and does not prohibit immigration enforcement at sensitive locations such as schools, hospitals, places of worship. Instead of including these common sense reforms to protect Americans from ICE's abuse, or abuse that got Kristi Noem fired, this bill removes guardrails and further funds cruelty. For example, the bill requires ICE to, quote, prioritize detention to ensure average daily population of detainees is maintained at the full capacity of all detention facilities, many of whom, and I have visited one or more actually, are private for-profit institutions, and we know it. And it drastically limits any oversight of private detention facilities outside of complying with the terms and conditions, and explicitly limits women's access to health care while in ICE custody. To my colleagues across the aisle who advocate for federalism, states' rights, and a limited federal government, this bill and the unchecked federal government overreach it would fund should disturb you. It should horrify you. You should reject it. Federalism and state sovereignty doesn't mean sending masked federal agents into our communities to carry out military-style operations while destroying trust, terrifying civilians and citizens in law enforcement, through law enforcement. I think of Renee Good. I think of Alex Preddy. I think of the others we witnessed being beaten, terrorized, shot, gassed, maced. I think of a dead detainee in Philadelphia's ICE detention center. I think of the women, the children, and the families that I met in Dilley, Texas, a for-profit institution that the conditions were inhumane. We need to support local law enforcement, give them the resources and freedom to address their safety needs at the local level through community-based approaches. It means providing meaningful checks on the federal government to protect states against federal overreach, like requiring judicial warrants for arrests and protecting private data. I'll close with this, a message shared by Cardinal Robert Prevost, now Pope Leo, on what Donald Trump did to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The Pope said, and I quote, "Do you not see the suffering? Is your conscience not disturbed? How can you stay quiet?" I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady. Are there any other members wishing to address the amendment? Gentleman from Nevada reserved his time at the beginning, and I would ask the gentleman, is there anything he wishes to say before we move to the manager's amendment?
Yes, please. Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Chairman. Well, here we are. Yeah, I'm not going to steal my yet. It's been a particularly dull year in the Homeland jurisdiction, don't we all think? Lot of easy to go around on the issues that this committee has jurisdiction over. Homeland Appropriations jurisdiction in the 119th Congress is the proverbial gift that keeps giving. In recognition of that, however, it's absolutely appropriate to shout out the staffs, committee, and your offices in front of you all, majority and minority. Because as you know, when you hear about something and you're like, hey, this isn't right, or I want to look into this or whatever, it doesn't all fall on the committee staff, it falls on your individual staffs. And thank you. You know, I was one of the folks who sat out there in the beginning Everybody's up here kissing up to the staff and all that stuff. What's that all about? Well, I'm not a fast learner, but after a while, you're like, wow, the only thing that maybe sucks worse than the issues that we get, might as well make lemonade out of lemons, is what those folks deal with on both sides of the aisle, every day, personal and whatever. So I want to break with my long-standing tradition of indifference and say, thank you all. I'm glad you're here. You're real pros. And while I'm doing that, I also, nothing against you members of this committee who couldn't pass the entrance exam to serve on the Homeland Subcommittee. But for those on both sides of the aisle who did get that lucky call, and let me tell you how I got there. Kay Granger had stepped down, and it's like, oh my God, there's going to be a shuffle and all that stuff. And so, you're sitting there wargaming all that stuff, and as you watch the moves be made one by one, and I was, my colleague from Florida, who I'd served a long time on Ledge Branch with, I've been on Homeland for a long time, and this is a public confession, really liked it. I liked the jurisdiction. I liked dealing with all those people, blah, blah, blah. I was happy. And so it gets down to you're watching the moves, and it's like, well, Homeland's left, and the record should reflect he's not here. David Joyce was a quitter. He was my predecessor. And it gets down to Homeland, and I'm thinking about, well, when the chairman calls, I'm going to say, I kind of like Ledge Branch. And the call comes, and so I'm like, hey, Mr. Chairman. No, hey, how are you? Whatever. He goes, you got Homeland. And I'm not, once again, but it was said in a way that was like, I'm not soliciting your input. You got Homeland. And because I'm some days of average intelligence, I said, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. End of conversation. So when I talk to those of you who are on the committee, I want to say this. It's not been an easy time. And it sure as heck not been an easy job, regardless of what your registration is. And so I want to say thank you. I noticed that Ms. Underwood, said what she had to say and left because she was afraid I was going to say something. There you are. Good. Thanks for pointing that out, because she shows up on Homeland the same time I do, and it's like, well, you got the blind leading the blind, although your eyesight was probably better. But anyhow, I remember Homeland goes to the floor. Kay Granger's in charge of the committee, and so there's Lauren Underwood and I on the floor acting like cardinal and ranking member, and I don't know, I won't speak for Ms. Underwood, but it was not a comfortable time. And I will say this, everybody gives Henry all the accolades, and you've earned them all, but I will never forget my first ranking member, who, when we got done on the floor, I hope this isn't supposed to be a secret, I sent her flowers. Thank you. Yeah, and you know me, I'm not a nice guy or sensitive. It's like, thank you so much. I mean, she did what she had to do, and we did our thing, but we got through it without, whatever. Henry Cuellar, Lauren Underwood, Mr. Case is obviously mad because I called him King. I think King sounds better than Case, but whatever. Yeah. No, Henry's not going to get flowers. But anyhow, I just want to say this. There is nothing easy about this. My members on my side where it's like, hey, what's going on? And so I want to say thank you all very much for the way you've conducted yourselves. Nobody's taken a dive. You can tell all the soft comments so far tonight. But it's like everybody's going to do what they think's right. But I want to say this. That has not been an easy committee to hang around on, or at least I don't think it is. Maybe it's because I'm the oldest guy on the committee. But anyhow, having said all that, the work that this committee did last year, even though it ended up getting senated or whatever happened to it, and that's a bipartisan criticism, and we're still getting senated. That's a bipartisan comment now. But what we did last year, even though it was like, a few people voted for it, and I won't say who they are or why we thought they did it, but it's like this outfit worked. I've been listening to a long time for the people with senior, this is the Appropriations Committee. We try to do this, do that, do whatever. And even if we don't get to the point where everybody unifies behind it, like whatever was going on with Judge Carter, we still need an investigation into that. But having said that, it's like, we were rightfully proud of that until the Senate, you know, because they're better looking, smarter, and wealthier than anybody in the House, you know, told us what we messed up. Having said that, it's harder this year. I get that. But you're going to have a chance on a manager's amendment in a minute. And I'll just tell you this, because listen, I'm leaving. I got no pride and I got no feelings left. So what are you going to do to me? Right? What are you going to do to me? This is an opportunity after what was done on the floor today and what the Senate sent over, ignoring all of our work, whatever. And so I'm just saying, do what you think's right, but please, please, please go, you know what? If this is our priority or whatever, we need to keep talking. Because I want to, this is absolutely new territory. What are we going to do with ICE and Border Patrol? You know, we just did this bill, and it's in here. It's in here and staying in here for a reason. We need to have a statement about what we think the normal appropriations process is. And the manager's amendment, whether you vote for the bill or not, is an important part of proving that we are able to, on stuff we agree on, go, okay, to stake that ground. And let me tell you what, if you know anybody else that's in the federal legislature that's trying to do what this committee's doing, please let me know, because this is the only show in town. So with that, Jesus, I'm way over, but I'm not as far over as Henry was. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Who said late night comedy is dead? Seeing no other members wishing to make opening remarks, I'd like to recognize Chairman Amodei to offer a manager's amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk, and I request that the reading be dispensed with.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentleman is recognized to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the gentleman from Texas and his staff for working with us all on the manager's amendment in the spirit of bipartisan cooperation. I could go through some of the stuff that's in there, but it is the product of requests that came from both sides that we included. So I'm not going to sit up here and say, gee, isn't it wonderful? Nice Henry, nice Mark. There's stuff in here that I expect some of you to stand up and say, hey, we think's okay. I mean, it's because of you that it's in there. But I also want to preface it with this. I know many of you question voting on a bill in this committee that funds ICE and Border Patrol, while we just passed a reconciliation bill that provides 3 years of funding. The most important thing to remember is this. This is the first step, not the last step. We wrote the bill before us well before reconciliation passed, and frankly, it represents the way these agencies should be funded through the normal appropriations process, not, and this represents, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time we've ever tried to fund operations with reconciliation. That's never been done before. So if you think the die's cast, then I would encourage you, when you wake up in a couple hours, to think again, because there is opportunity here. And I'm not going to go through the recriminations, blah, blah, blah. I'll just say, I will say this. The entire Senate agreed to gut the appropriations process by sending us a bill that basically needs special funding for two agencies in an appropriations bill that has never been divided before. So what's next? Should we just cross ICE out and Border Patrol from this bill and call it a day? I don't believe that's prudent, and I don't think you guys will too on reflection. This bill and report and this manager's amendment contain important oversight provisions for ICE and Border Patrol. Also, there's language that reflects your requests and your priorities, provisions important to your districts, already in the bill and also in this manager's amendment. Now I agree that we don't want to double fund ICE and Border Patrol, But what I do want is for us to think deliberatively and carefully about how we preserve the important provisions in this bill. We will have an opportunity to preserve those provisions, but you got to look for them so that we can work together on that. I understand, this is even more good news, the Senate is not moving forward with markups anytime soon. So we're going to have plenty of time to put some pen to paper and consider our options. My recommendation is that we press forward. This manager's amendment is the first step in that. Passing that out of committee, and let's preserve the good work that we did last year and what we're going to add to it this year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. I urge your support.
I thank gentlemen. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Cuellar, is recognized to discuss the manager's amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, and to my friend, Chairman Amade. I do agree with them. If you look at the different amendments that got added, it was a strong effort to make sure that we went over the different amendments, and there were amendments that were added on both sides of the aisle. So I certainly want to thank both the majority and the minority staff because they worked together. And Chairman Amade, I have to say this is, I've seen a lot of good manager's amendment as Mike Simpson and all the folks, but I have to say you really put an effort, we put an effort to add as many of the priorities that the members have. So with that, no objections to this amendment. I encourage my colleagues to support it, and I yield back.
Thank you, gentlemen. Gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Wasserman Schultz, recognized for comments on the manager's amendment.
Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to add my thanks to the subcommittee chairman and ranking member, Mr. Amadei and Mr. Cuellar, for including an additional $40 million for the Nonprofit Security Grant Program and allowing the funds to be used to hire security personnel. I'm grateful to all of the other bipartisan members who joined me in supporting this request. And while this is funding that is still not as much as I'd like to see or anywhere near the funding that is necessary given the drastic rise in anti-Semitism, hate crimes, and recent deadly attacks against the Muslim community in San Diego and the Jewish community here in Washington, it is certainly a small step in the right direction. A few weeks ago, the House unanimously passed my resolution marking Jewish American Heritage Month. And that resolution pointed out two facts. 91% of Jewish Americans feel less safe than a year ago. And 50% of Jewish institutions lack the resources to protect themselves against a shooting or a terror attack. And many other communities haven't been able to access nearly as much in the way of security resources, like historically Black colleges and universities and minority-serving churches and mosques. I look forward to working across the aisle to make sure every American can exercise their First Amendment right to practice their religion, participate in cultural events, and gather in safety. Thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, gentlelady. The gentlelady from Maine, Ms. Pingree, is recognized for comments on the manager's amendment.
Mr. Chair, I have a lot of concerns about this bill, but I want to thank the chair and the ranking member for allowing my amendment to be included in the manager's amendment, and I do support this. This amendment is a simple amendment about accountability, transparency, and responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars. And I want to tell you a little bit of a story about it. I am opposed to this idea that Congress has appropriated billions of dollars through reconciliation that we'll be doing again in this bill for immigration enforcement. And I want to make sure we know, all of us, how these dollars are being spent and whether these dollars are being used even close to effectively or efficiently. In Maine, many of us followed a case of a young woman named Olivia Andre. She was a 19-year-old nursing student living with her family in Portland. She was detained along with her mother and two siblings in Dilley, Texas. A judge had already blocked their removal. They were awaiting the decision on their asylum claim. Her mother and siblings were released after 4 months in Dilley. But Olivia was kept in detention nearly 2,000 miles away from her home, her family, her classmates, her workmates, for another 2 months. It took those 2 months of public pressure and sustained advocacy and another court case before she was finally released. It included myself taking a trip to Texas, and I want to thank Mr. Cuellar, Mr. Castro, and many others who accompanied me on that trip and assisted in her release. But what I really wanted to know was how much were taxpayers spending to detain people when the government cannot immediately remove them? Detention is one of the most expensive tools the federal government has, as well as being inhumane and cruel, particularly to a 19-year-old young woman who had to live in inhumane conditions. But we need to better understand this benefit, and that's what my amendment does. It doesn't dictate any outcomes on any individual cases. It doesn't change immigration law. But this case gives us a sense of why questions matter. Now, I hope we will get a thorough study after this, but I will just tell you, when we were on that trip, and we were told at that time there was about 17% occupancy, we were told it's costing currently $1,000, $1,025.10 per day to keep an individual in Dilley. And the rough math of her family being there for 4 months and her being there for a full 6 months adds up to about $500,000. $500,000 to detain somebody who didn't even legally need to be detained. Families are suffering. These costs are piling up. That's why we're spending so much money today. But I want to thank the chair and the ranking member for including this common sense provision, and I look forward to all of us having more information. And I urge your support of the manager's amendment. I yield back.
Thank you, gentlelady, for comments. Gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Frankel, is recognized for comments on the bill.
Thank you.
On the manager's amendment, I'm sorry.
Manager's amendment. I am awake. Am I awake? I think so. First of all, Mr. Amadei, you are a delight to work with. And I like you too, Mr. Cuellar. But Mr. Amadei, we have been looking for a collaboration, have we not?
Yes, ma'am.
And we finally found one in the manager's amendment. There's two of them, and I appreciate to the chair and the ranking member for this. First, there's an inclusion of a provision to strengthen Presidential Resident Protection Assistance Grant Program, which will be a relief to the jurisdictions that host President Trump's residents in Palm Beach, in Westminster, and New York City. Now, the fix does not add a single dollar to the bill. It just simply ensures that Congress, the funding Congress has already provided, is appropriately distributed to the local communities that have used their tax dollars to provide presidential security. And as a member of Congress, my focus is on Palm Beach County. And I think a few of you may have, on the other side, have been to Mar-a-Lago, which and where since July in 24, since the attempt on President Trump's life, law enforcement agencies and fire departments in Palm Beach County, West Palm Beach, and the town of Palm Beach have spent more than $39 million in local taxpayer dollars supporting presidential security. So this important fix in the manager amendment ensures that law enforcement, fire department, and EMS expenses are all eligible for reimbursement. It allows communities to recover costs incurred during the heightened security period following the serious threats against the president before his reelection. I think hopefully we all agree that the federal government should bear the financial responsibility of protecting the president. And this provision, thank you, it will bring welcome relief to our hometown budgets and local taxpayers. And the second amendment, I just want to echo Representative Wasserman Schultz, which it provides additional $40 million for the Nonprofit Security Grant Program, a vital program that helps houses of worship and nonprofits protect our communities. And at a time when threats and violence, we have seen heartbreaking attacks on people of all faiths, and no one should have to fear gathering to pray, learn, or come together as a community. I know for me, when I go to temple, there's a man standing there with a couple of men standing there with guns, and it's really sort of scary. But anyway, this funding will help nonprofits afford security cameras, reinforce doors, emergency community systems, and other life-saving measures that keep families and congregations safe. And I also look forward, as the bill moves along, to try to plus up this account. And again, thank you. I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady for her comments. Gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Underwood, recognized for comments on the manager's amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of the manager's amendment because it includes 3 important changes that I pushed for. One of these provisions addresses a challenge that far too many families face when a loved one is detained in ICE custody. During the Trump administration's reckless rush to deport as many people as possible, ICE has frequently moved detainees from one facility to another with little or no information provided to family members or legal counsel. These secretive transfers have left families and attorneys scrambling to determine where someone has been moved and how to contact them. In effect, the federal government has been disappearing people. The language included in my amendment will improve transparency and communication by ensuring that designated points of contact receive timely notification when a transfer occurs, along with information about the receiving facility and the reason for the transfer. Families should not be left searching for basic information about the whereabouts of a loved one. This amendment will ensure they get answers. The manager's amendment also secures dedicated funding for 5 new mobile medical units for the United States Coast Guard. Coast Guard personnel and their families serve in some of the most remote and geographically isolated communities in our country, where access to health care can be limited and often requires lengthy travel for everything from routine appointments to specialist treatment. The Coast Guard's ability to recruit and retain a strong workforce depends on quality of life we can offer to service members and their families, and the bare minimum is ensuring that they can access the medical care that they need. These new mobile medical units will help bring healthcare closer to Coast Guard families, improving access to essential services while supporting readiness across the force. Lastly, the manager's amendment includes my reporting requirement on the availability and condition of Coast Guard housing. Whenever I speak with our Coast Guard service members, I hear concerns about housing shortages, maintenance backlogs, long wait lists, and units that remain unavailable because of unresolved health and safety concerns. Yet Congress still lacks a complete understanding of the scope of these challenges across the service. This report will provide critical information about housing inventory, occupancy rates, repair backlogs, vacant units, and future housing needs. That information will help Congress better understand where resources are needed and ensure that safe and reliable housing is a reality throughout the Coast Guard. Taken together, these 3 provisions advance transparency, accountability, and support for the families and service members who depend on these systems every day. Thank you for working with me on these issues. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, and I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady for her comments. Let me, before we move to a vote, I'm going to yield to myself to make a couple of comments. Number one, I want to thank the chairman and the ranking member again. I don't have any illusions about where we'll be at the end of the bill, but I appreciate working together on the manager's amendment because in my view, it shows you can always find ways to get something done, even if you don't agree with the final product. It's a productive exercise. It would have been easy for both of you not to do that and for the other members not to do that too, and I'm very grateful that you did. I will offer an opinion, speaking only for myself, that we have been in this extraordinary predicament over this piece of legislation, not largely because of anything in the House, but because of the Senate. You can like the filibuster or not like the filibuster. I don't particularly like it, but I know I'm not in the body that decides whether or not they're going to use it. But I think Democrats in the Senate have systematically misused the filibuster, a item which they all say they want to get rid of as soon as they can. They do not support it, but they've used it to thwart the appropriations process. There is a bipartisan majority in each chamber that was in favor of the Homeland Security bill. Whether you were or not, that's fine, but there was a bipartisan majority in both chambers. And it's Democrats in the Senate that decided that's not enough. And frankly, it was Republicans that allowed them to do that. And in my view, it's a decision collectively by the Senate to put the filibuster above the normal appropriations process. The filibuster is a Senate rule. It's not in the Constitution. It's not the law of the land. It's a rule. And it's been changed over and over again throughout its history. The number of senators it takes, the appointment process most recently when it was done away with because first the Democrats thought the Republicans were being too restrictive on judicial appointments, and then Republican says, we're going to fix you, we'll do it on the Supreme Court, which you left, and it's been a tit for tat. That is not nearly as reliable as the appropriations process, which is constitutional Article I authority of Congress. This body exercised that, and we can agree or disagree with it. I've been both sides of those arguments. The Senate did not. It resorted to its rule, and it's created absolute chaos and acrimony. And I want to again thank the chairman and thank the ranking member because they fought through that and they got to a solution last year. They've started the process of working together this year. And we'll just see where we both end up. But I will tell you this, today I'd rather be on this committee where we're at than on the Senate Appropriations Committee where they're at. And I want to end with this. I want to thank all of you that are here or any place else. I know there's a few watching undoubtedly at Garbarino's Bar and Grill around the corner. But I know it's been a very, very long day. And I really want to thank all of you for sticking with it. I want to thank you for your demeanor in debate with one another, finding common ground where you can, disagreeing civilly and respectfully where you can. And that's the way the business is done. And I could not be prouder of you on both sides of the aisle than I am today. And I know you hate me now, but tomorrow night when we're done, you'll thank me. You don't have to do it publicly or even out loud. Just say, thank God I don't have to go back to appropriation. So thank you for working with us and helping us get that done. With that, no, I'm not going to let anybody else speak. Okay. You're a big guy when you get up, man. So I want to recognize Chairman Amadei for 1 minute to close, and we'll get out of here. Chairman's recognized.
I yield back.
Perfect concluding speech. With that, here we go. Yeah, we are going to vote on the amendment. The question is on the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. And the chair, pending the chair, the ayes have it. The committee now stands in recess until, remember this, 10 a.m. tomorrow, a little bit, an hour earlier than today.
Whoa.
That was really a nice set.
Send it out as a release.
You were